What's up, YouTube? It's B4Flex, and in this video I'm going to talk to you guys about how you guys can prevent and manage wrist pain. All right, so you want to prevent it in general, but of course if you end up being injured, how can you manage it? How can you train whilst injured? Okay, so tip number one is how you wrap your hands. Pay more attention to wrapping around this joint over here, so on top of it and below it. You want to pay attention to wrapping your wrist rather than actually wrapping your knuckles. That's what your gloves are for, or even use excess padding, like extra padding or stuff like that, just to soften your knuckles, right? But your hand wrap should be to support your wrist, okay? Because as I said, the gloves protect your knuckles, so protect your wrist when you wrap your hands. So just understand that the emphasis is on wrapping your hands because there's going to be a whole bunch of impact. You want to brace your hand as much as possible. It might be like, oh, punch technique and all that. You might be saying punch technique is key, and of course it is, and we'll address that later on in the video. But that's for when you're punching the bag, when you can control the movement of the object or the movement of the target. But when you're sparring, you can't entirely control where their head or where their body's going to be as you hit, so you might end up hitting on a bad angle, and that's why you wrap to secure your wrist. Second on the list is secure your wrists. Now you can use tape. You know, a lot of people use tape. I use tape from time to time, but I actually like these weightlifting straps that I actually found off this YouTube video. I'm gonna link it up top here. I can't remember off the top of my head, but I found on this YouTube video a guy actually gave some advice, and lo and behold, it's been very, very useful. These are weightlifting straps, and the reason I like them is because with tape, I end up not taping too tight because, of course, I don't want to restrict my blood flow, and from time to time during a session, I want to take it off, but then obviously my coach is like, yo, this tape ain't cheap, right? So this enables me to go as tight as need be to secure my wrist, but also to take it off. So one-time price type thing. It's not like tape where you just have to buy more and more. And it just secures your hand. It secures your wrist in place on top of your wraps, right? This is just to make sure, right? This is those of you, this isn't necessarily to prevent, although you can of course use them. This is more so to manage when you are already injured. So when you've messed up your wrist and you can't really do much with it, secure it with these weightlifting straps. I got mine off Amazon. It's not that hard to find. To secure your wrist so that you can train whilst even injured. Okay. Tip number 3, hit softer bags and wear padded gloves. Okay. Of course, you can hit the bag with 12-ounce gloves and you can spar with 12-ounce gloves if your coach so allows. But I recommend 16 ounces. And the reason I recommend it, I'm not saying this is the case for all people, maybe even 14 ounces, but the really padded ones, bag gloves in general, because you really do want to protect your wrist. Something has to give. So when you're hitting something with a whole bunch of power, something has to give. That's why when you punch the wall, either the wall breaks or you break your knuckles, okay? So just understand that something has to give. So if you're hitting a hard bag, your wrist might give, your knuckles might give, your carpals might give, or the bag will move, right? So a softer bag, in case the bag doesn't move, in case it's really heavy, will help to take some of that impact off the punch. So for me, I've actually got a new bag that I use now because the other bag, a lot of the weight gathered up at the bottom, and that would be the part that I throw my punches to, and it just messed me up over time. So I've got this softer bag because, yet again, you want to control what gives, basically. I don't want my wrist to give. I want the bag to give. And padded gloves, the same thing, right? Whenever I hit a bag with some less padded gloves, I feel like there's less give in general. So I like to have padded gloves so that there's more give. This is also just bro science at this point, but this is what I found has helped me out a lot. Tip number 4, and probably the most important tip, is punch technique. So I realized that I needed to turn my hand over or my knuckles over when I throw my hooks. Now it varies from person to person. Some people throw their hooks like this. Some people throw their hooks like this, right? Sort of a vertical hook compared to a horizontal hook. I realized that my wrist was a lot more secure when I threw a horizontal hook, because when you throw a horizontal hook, you've got a lot less range on your hook. So you're less likely to reach and therefore put your hand in an awkward position. Whereas when you throw a hook like this, you can kind of reach forward, and if you look at my hand, if I show it like this, it's kind of bent, if that makes any sense. So I realized throwing horizontal hooks has helped a whole ton. I've only ever injured my wrist when throwing hooks vertical, basically, without turning my knuckles. And when I switched it, I was even able to hit with an injured wrist. So that's definitely important. For headshots, you know, when you throw hooks to the head, but also when you throw hooks to the body, where possible, drop down as you punch and still turn your wrist. This, of course, will protect your chin, but also it will secure your wrist and ensure that you're only hitting when optimal and when safe, basically. That's helped me a whole ton. It might help some of you guys, I don't know. Each person's different, but it's definitely helped me a ton. Also, when you punch, make sure you clench your fist. Of course, you want to stay relaxed in general. It helps you punch faster. And then they say, upon impact, clench, right? Like, you know, close your fist upon impact once you're hitting, I find that sometimes I forget to close my fist, right? To clench my fist. So I like to, whenever I'm ready to start attacking, then I keep my fist clenched in general. Like I keep it, if I'm on the offensive, my hand is just always clenched, and then I can relax when I'm just thinking defensively, right? That's how I like to do it. I like to just keep my fist clenched basically at all times when I'm offensive. This helps just to make sure that I don't accidentally, as I get tired, because this can be the case sometimes. As you get tired, you're forgetting to actually clench your fist upon impact, and you're just hitting with an open hand, and guess what? Wrist is going to have a lot more give because your forearm isn't secure. So clench your fists. And then tip number 5 is strengthening and stretching. You need to condition your wrist. If I was going to do a bunch of jump training without any conditioning beforehand, you'd find I'd get knee issues. And that's the same with your wrist, right? You're going to be punching, but you never punched anything before, or you rarely ever punch things, or all you've been doing is slow type of training. Your wrist might be somewhat okay in general to do push-ups and pull-ups and stuff like that, but will it be able to take the amount of force that's going to go into that small location? What I recommend is strengthening your wrist through a variety of exercises. I might make a separate video on different exercises, but I'll show 2 that I do on the screen just to strengthen your wrist for impact. Of course, doing things like knuckle push-ups and stuff like that can also help in impact training, but I mainly do it because it actually helps with mobility, as in like it helps where my wrist isn't mobile when injured. Doing it on my knuckles feels more natural. But yeah, definitely strengthen your wrists. Doing things like pull-ups, weighted pull-ups, or dead hangs can also help in gaining strength in your forearms, in your grip, for when you need to clench your hands for those extra powerful punches you're going to throw. And of course, stretch your wrist after your sessions as well. I hope this helps you guys. Wrist pain is annoying. It's a nuisance. I deal with a lot of wrist pain and I hate it. Hopefully this helps you guys. Let me know in the comments. It's B4Flex and I'm out.